there was a group at Unity of Cottonwood, and they decided that they needed to become more of a friendship, more of a fellowship, that they needed to make bonds with each other. And so they decided that they were going to have some dinners. And it came time for Mary to make dinner for a group of people, and she was really going to go all out. She decided that she was going to do steak and mushrooms. She had the money for the steak, but couldn't afford the mushrooms. And her husband said to her, Mary, the cows out there are eating those mushrooms out there in the field. Go pick those mushrooms. And she thought about it. And she had an idea. She got some of the mushrooms and she cut them up and she put them in her puppy dog's food and old Shep's food. And old Shep ate the food, and all day long she watched him. He was good. So she made those mushrooms and served them, and everybody loved them. She had a lady come in that was helping her serve, and the lady came and whispered in her ear, "Old Shep is dead." And the lady just, keep my hands away. She said, "Oh my God." And so she called very quickly. She dialed her doctor and she told him what happened. And he said, "We'll send an ambulance right now. We'll pump everybody's stomach out. It'll be okay." And they did. And everybody was sitting around and saying, "Well, it was a good dinner until." And about that time, the little lady that was helping her serve said, "You know, that guy that hit Shep never did stop." Okay. You're supposed to laugh, not say, "Oh." This month I've been talking about, my subject has been, God is in the house. And so what I want to do is sort of bring that together. And the way we're going to do that is, with my talk, it says, and I think in your little flyer, it says saying yes. Yes. But I'm really saying say yes to God. And there's something implicit when we say yes to God. We're saying say yes to life. Yes to abundance. Yes to your inner yearnings. And just as we say yes to God, we are saying no to all the fear and the doubt and other people's beliefs. If any group understood the power of what saying yes does, this group should. Last November, we made this decision to start looking for another building. And here it is, it's only July. And we're at that place where we're almost ready to close on a new building. We said, yes, let's make more space for God in Melbourne. And that's what happens in your life. When you say yes to God, you're lining up with the universe. And the universe gets behind you and works its way. Who would think that we could find a building without a realtor and sell this building without a realtor? Who knew? How easy it would be. God. All we had to do is say, yes, we trust. And there were many times, and there are still many times, when fear and doubt and lack and limitation come up and says, oh, can you really do that? Yes. And every time that no comes up, we've been very fortunate because we've had, the universe has said, wait, let me remind you that I'm helping you here. So I want us to learn that yes part for ourselves individually. And I want you to say yes to those inner longings, those promptings of spirit. In the first week of our series, when we had, or maybe second, I don't remember, when we talked about soul signals, we said, how do you know if it's true? Does anybody remember the test of knowing? No. Must not have been very memorable. The first question is, does that empower you? And the second question is, does it do no harm to anyone else? So if you have a yearning in your heart, that's the test. Is this a God yearning, or is this something that my ego has dreamed up? If it empowers you to grow and be more and does no harm, you can trust that that's that universal mind of God at work in your life. Now, I have people that tell me that they don't know what their internal yearning is. I have people that say to me, but Beth, I've done everything I wanted to do in my life. I don't know what's next. And as I struggled with that this week, I had something that came up for me a couple of times. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think probably most of you know, we do noon prayer and then we go to lunch. And people will say, well, you go to lunch, and I'll say, I don't care. Go to the movie. Which movie do you want to go to see? I don't care. Do you want popcorn? I don't care. If you want some, I'll eat some. I recognize that that's just as good as saying no to life. That I have to check in. I have to get aware in myself about these little things. When something comes up, if I can't get to a decision, I need to go inside and figure out why not. Now, that does not mean that every Tuesday and Thursday that I'm going to decide where we go to lunch. But it does mean that I'm going to check in and say, what does sound good? And then I can say, well, X sounds good to me. And somebody says, well, this sounds good and that sounds good. And we can all make a joint decision. But instead of just saying it doesn't matter, I need for myself to get clear. And what I saw as I was doing this lesson is that there are lots of places in my life where I do that. I don't make the decision. I don't go inside. I don't find out what's next. I don't find out what my inner gut is telling me. And so for those of you who might have fallen into that habit like I have, I want to encourage you to get really clear about what you're saying yes to. And I want to reaffirm that when you say yes to something, that you also have to make that conscious effort to say no to all those thoughts of fear and doubt and lack and limitation that come up. I know about this in another way. I have known since I've been here that we needed to do a capital campaign. When I was in ministerial school, they said, don't do a capital campaign. It's a lot of work. Causes headache, heartaches. People leave. You don't want to do one. And so every time that idea of doing a capital campaign came up for me, that inner yes, saying, yes, let's do it, right into my face came that fear, that doubt, that limitation. You're going to run people off. It won't work. It'll be too much work, and you can't do it. And all I had to do was say yes. And God, the universe, lined up as Unity of Melbourne and did the work. And amen, I just want to talk about the word amen just a little bit, because I want to go back. There's a Bible verse I wanted to mention. I do have a story that I need to tell. This is really good. At their end of the first date, a young couple came home, and the young man, he really liked the young lady, and he was standing there, and they were saying goodnight, and he went over and he leaned up and put his hand on the door, and he was talking. He said, "I would really like a goodnight kiss." She said, "Oh no, somebody might see us." "Oh, they're all asleep. Just one kiss." "No, my parents would be mad." "Oh, please, honey, I really like you." "Well, I like you too." "No, I'm afraid." And about that time, the front door opened, and her sister, yawning, sleepy bedhead, said, "Dad said to tell me to tell you to say yes. Kiss him, or I'll kiss him, or Dad will come kiss him, but for God's sake..." "Tell him to take his hand off the doorbell." Say yes, yes. In the Bible, Jesus said, "Fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Fear is the great enemy of humankind. Fear brings limitation and lack in its wake and destroys happiness and the possibility of something greater. It destroys the possibility of God being at work. Yes and no. And talk about amen for just a second. In the Bible, in the King James Version, amen means "and so it is." And in the Aramaic, that goes back at me, this is an ancient Hebrew and Greek, amen means "verily it is established, it is true, it is the truth." And so when we say yes, and then we say no to those fears and lack, we've got to do something. We need to take the next step. And when we do that, that is saying, amen. So it is. It's established in my life. Now there's a Bible story that really illustrates that. And we have a master storyteller, our own Jane Thompson. And I've asked her to share this Bible story with you because it is an example of yes, no, and amen.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Would you believe that 3,000 years ago in ancient Palestine, a battle was going on? There was a place called Elah in ancient Palestine. The Philistines were on one hill, and there was a valley, a very rugged, lots of rocks in between. And on the other hill, the Israelites under King Saul. And in the morning they'd get up, at night they'd eat their supper and they'd sleep, and in the morning they'd get up and they'd rush toward each other and do each other in as best they could. And this, of course, was going on for 40 days and 40 nights. And the Philistines had a mighty weapon. His name was Goliath, and he was a giant. And it was said that he was 9 feet 9 inches tall. He was massive. And every morning early before the battle and every night late before the sleeping, he would get up and he would scream at the Israelites, calling them terrible names. And the Israelites would shake, and sometimes they'd run even further into the hills. They were so afraid. But what was done in those days was what Goliath proposed. He said, "Send me one of your men," he said to the Israelites. "Send me one of your men. And if I kill him, then you will be our slaves. But if he destroys me, then we will be under your command." Well, in a land not too far away in Bethlehem, a man by the name of Jesse, who raised his 8 sons to love God, he called his youngest son to him. His name was David. He was about 18 or 19 years old, and he only had one job, and that was to be a shepherd. And his father called him, Jesse called him and said, "David, here's some grain and some bread and cheese, and I want you to go to the battlefield. And I want you to give this to your older brothers," because 3 of the older brothers were fighting under King Saul. So the boy started out, and all he had on was his loincloth and his walking stick and his little shepherd bag. And he headed toward the battlefield. And you know, there was the giant down in the valley, as he was for 40 days and 40 nights, screaming. And when the young boy saw the giant, he was so afraid, like any other young person would be, or anyone would be. Because the giant had armor on from head to toe, and his helmet shone, and bronze metal shone in the sun, and he was shaking his fist at everyone, and he was ranting and raving. And the boy finally found his 3 older brothers, and he rejoiced that they were still alive. And the brother said to David, "Have you seen the giant?" And David said, "Oh, yes, I've seen the giant." He said, "But you know, on the way here I heard something." He said, "King Saul has said that anyone who destroys the giant will have all the horses they want. They'll live in beautiful homes, and they won't have any taxes. And not only that, they will get to marry the princess." He said, "The princess is beautiful." Well, the brothers looked at each other because they saw what was forming. And they said, "David, go back home. It was good to see you, but go back home. You're a shepherd. All you can do is take care of the sheep." And David was thinking, and he was saying, "You know," he said, "I killed a lion once, and I killed wolves that were messing around with the sheep. And you know, I can do this. Yes, I can." And as he was talking, the giant was beginning in his mind to get smaller and smaller. The fear was dissipating. The doubt was dissipating. And so the brothers didn't know what to do. They kept telling him he couldn't do it. He couldn't destroy the giant. And so David went to King Saul, and King Saul, they say, was about 6 feet tall. And David said, "I'm going to kill the giant." And King Saul said, "But you're but a boy." He said, "But I can do this. Yes, I can." He said, "Well, no one else has come forward. So first thing I'm going to do is put some armor. I'll put my armor on you." So can you imagine a kid standing there with all this armor on him? And he said, "This can't be it." He said, he took it off. He said, I will go and I'll kill the giant without this armor." So when he left King Saul, he went and he picked up 5 shiny rocks. Now, the rocks in Jerusalem are not the rocks you'd find in your backyard. They're pretty heavy. Some of them are as big as a golf ball, and some bigger. But anyway, he put those in his pouch, and he went forward. Now, what some people don't know is that, you know, we've had slingshots when we were growing up. You know, you just pull them back and you shoot them. But there were some people that were so good at slinging, they call them slingers. And they could, with this piece of leather, I don't know, I can't describe, but this piece of leather, which they could go like this, they could be like archers. They were so perfect in their shots. Almost like a gun, but not quite as fast. It would go toward whatever they shot at, or whatever they threw it at. So when he went into the valley, there the monster was, or the giant. And the giant looked up and he said, "What is this? Sending me a boy? What are you going to do, beat me like a dog with your stick?" But David just stood there, and he knew that he had the strength of God on his side. He had great belief, and he had looked at the giant, and the giant was smaller than he would appear to other people, because David had his mind on the greater good. In fact, he heard that the princess bathed in perfume, and he was in the bathtub with her in his mind. So he took that rock, and he put it in a sling, and he went around a few times, and then he let it go, and it went right smack into the giant's forehead. And the giant fell over. And David didn't wait around to see if he was dead or alive. He ran over and he pulled the giant's sword out of its sheath and he cut off his head. And with that, the Israelites ran down, the Philistines ran away, and you can imagine what happened that day. I put the boy up on their shoulders and carried him around for a while. Well, David took the head of the giant to King Saul. And the rest of the story is that even without experience, because he had such belief in himself, because he was able to say no to the awful things that he saw and to yes to his greatest goodness, because of this, in not too long a time, after many battles where he was really distinguished, he became the king of a united Israel. And he also founded a dynasty in Jerusalem that remained powerful for 500 years. It's a great story. It happened all because when he had this big challenge to meet, he had the faith and had developed the confidence to say yes. Now, Reverend Beth, can you top that story?
I can't top the story, and I can't top the storyteller, either one. And so the story really shouldn't be called David and Goliath. It should be called David and the princess. Because he took his eye off Goliath and put his eye on the princess. He said yes to the princess, yes to no taxes, yes for land and horses. And he said no to that giant, no to that problem. And when he put those stones in his pouch, and when he took one out, that was saying amen. This is the truth. And I'm operating out of that truth. We tend to see the Goliaths in our life as massive and overwhelming. We get caught up in our belief in Goliath's power. Close your eyes for just a moment and consider the challenges in your life. What is the challenge in your life? And are you focusing on the size of the problem? And invite you to just spend a second saying, what is my heart calling me to? What is it asking me to say yes to? And what fear, doubt, concern, or limitation is coming up? Look that fear square in the eye and say, no, I don't think so. make it say, to make it so in your life. Say amen. Proclaim that it is yours. Ask for guidance on your next right step. As you do this, as you say yes, no, and amen, you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is alive and well and vibrantly expressing in and through your house. Amen. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
And so it is. Thank you.